to the deep dive. I want you to picture something for a second. It's an image that I guarantee is hanging somewhere in your mental office.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's been there since, what, high school psychology?
Oh.
Or maybe your first corporate management seminar? It's a triangle. A very colorful, very neat little pyramid.
The famous hierarchy.
Exactly. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
It is basically the default map for how we think about winning at life.
Right, you start at the bottom.
You start at the bottom, scrabbling for food and safety. Then, once you're safe, you climb up a step to get some friends. Then you get some self-esteem.
And then the summit.
And finally, yeah, if you are really lucky and really successful, you reach that snowy peak of self-actualization.
It is a very tidy, very seductive map.
Yeah.
Because it tells you there's a clear order of operations to happiness, right? First survival, then success, then meaning.
But here's the problem, and honestly, the reason we are diving into this stack of research today. What if that map is leading us off a cliff? What if the reason so many people feel stuck or, I don't know, unfulfilled isn't because they aren't climbing fast enough, but because the mountain itself is a mirage?
That is the central tension of the sources we're looking at today. We are essentially putting the standard model of human purpose on trial.
We are, and we have two very different sets of witnesses. On one side, we have what I'll call the challengers.
Okay.
These are Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're from the Stanford Life Design Lab. We're looking at a discussion they did with Mel Robbins, and they are engineers and designers who argue that treating life like a mountain climb is it's a recipe for misery.
And on the other side, we have the fact checkers. This is a really fascinating academic review from 1976 by Wahba and Lawrence Bridwell.
The heavy lifting.
Exactly. They did the heavy lifting of looking at decades of empirical data to answer a super simple question. Does Maslow's pyramid actually exist in the real world?
So our mission today is to see if these two sources, so a modern design philosophy and a classic academic takedown, if they can actually give us a better way to figure out what to do with our lives.
Because if the ladder is broken, we clearly need a new way to get high, or at least a new way to move forward.
Right. So let's start with the Stanford perspective,
Hey.
Burnett and Evans, because they don't actually start with psychology, which I found really interesting.
No, they don't. They start with a thought experiment that is, honestly, it's a little overwhelming.
It is. They use this analogy of a linear accelerator.
Right.
So imagine you could step into a machine like the ones physicists use to smash atoms, but instead of splitting particles, it splits you. You get to splinter off into the multiverse.
It's like a sci-fi movie.
Totally. And in this scenario, you get to live out every single potential version of your life simultaneously. You don't have to choose.
Right. So in one timeline, you keep your current job.
Yeah.
In another, you go back to med school. In another, you move to Bali and open a surf shop.
I have to admit, my first reaction to that is just panic. Living 10 lives at once sounds exhausting.
It does sound chaotic.
Yeah.
But the question they ask their Stanford students is super revealing. They ask, in this multiverse, how many of those lives would you actually want to live?
Not just tolerate, but
lives that look genuinely awesome to you.
And the data suggests it's not just one, right? Because we are always told to find our one true passion, but the average person comes up with something else entirely.
Yeah, the average is 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Most people can clearly visualize 7 or 8 distinct, happy, productive lives they could lead.
Okay, so I have 7 great lives inside me. I could be the astronaut, the writer, the CEO, the parent, the chef.
But you only have one body.
And one timeline.
And that is exactly where the math gets brutal. Bill Burnett points this out. If you have 7 lives inside you, and you execute one of them perfectly.
Like you crush it.
You crush it, you become the absolute best CEO or the best chef. You are still only living about 14% of your potential personhood.
Wow. 14%. That feels incredibly heavy. You're telling me that even if I win, I am leaving 86% of myself on the table.
Yeah.
That sounds like a massive failure.
Well, that is the Maslow trap talking. That feeling of failure comes directly from the idea that there is a summit where you get to be all that you can be.
Right, because Maslow's definition of self-actualization is about total fulfillment.
Exactly. And Stanford is saying, mathematically, that is impossible.
So the anxiety we all feel comes from trying to shove 100% of our potential into 14% of a life?
Precisely. If you think there is a right answer that encompasses everything, you will always feel like you're missing out.
Always.
But if you accept the math that you are a multiverse of possibilities forced into a single channel, then the goal shifts. It isn't about being everything.
It's about designing the specific 14% you're going to live right now.
Right. It reframes the problem completely.
From what is my destiny to which choice am I making today?
Exactly.
And I want to push back on this a little bit. Sure.
This life design stuff is great philosophy. It really is. But Maslow's ladder feels logical for a reason.
It makes intuitive sense.
Right. I mean, I can't worry about my legacy or my artistic expression if I can't pay my rent, right? The latter makes sense on a practical level. First survival, then art.
You would think so. It appeals to our logical brains. But this is where we need to bring in those fact checkers.
Right. Wahba and Bridwell.
Yes. Because for a long time, nobody actually checked the math on Maslow. It was just accepted wisdom in every textbook.
Just cake in his gospel.
Completely. But in 1976, these researchers reviewed all the studies that had tried to prove Maslow right in workplace settings. They looked at the hard data on how real humans actually prioritize their needs.
And did the data look like a pyramid?
Not even close.
Walk us through that, because Maslow has those 5 specific steps, right? Physiological, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization.
Okay, so in statistics, there is a method called factor analysis.
Yeah.
Think of it like sorting laundry.
Okay, sorting laundry. You throw all the data points into a big pile, and you see which ones naturally stick together. If Maslow was right, the data should have clumped into 5 clear buckets.
The 5 steps of the pyramid.
Exactly.
And instead,
It was a mess.
a mess.
A total mess. The best the researchers could find was maybe 2 buckets. They found deficiency needs. So, stuff you notice when it's missing, like food or safety.
Makes sense.
And growth needs, like learning and autonomy.
Okay, 2 buckets instead of 5. But surely they happen in order, right?
That's the kicker. They didn't happen in order.
Wait, they didn't happen in order. So this idea of prepotency, that's the fancy term Maslow used, meaning you have to unlock level 1 before you go to level 2, that's a myth.
It is completely unsupported by the evidence.
That is wild.
Think about the starving artist archetype.
Oh, right. The musician living in a van, eating ramen, but completely fulfilled by their music.
Exactly. Or think of a political activist who risks their physical safety, the absolute bottom of the pyramid, for a cause they believe in, which is the top of the pyramid.
If Maslow were right, those people shouldn't exist.
Their brains literally shouldn't allow them to care about purpose until they were perfectly safe.
But humans do that all the time. We prioritize meaning over comfort constantly.
But we do. The studies show that needs are not a hierarchy at all. They are a mix.
Yeah.
They overlap significantly. You can be hungry and still want to learn. You can be lonely and still have incredibly high self-esteem.
You know, this actually explains a lot of unhappiness, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if we believe the latter is real, we tell ourselves things like, I'll write that book after I get the promotion.
Yes.
Or, I'll spend more time with my kids after I make my first million.
It creates this toxic then-when trap. We delay our growth needs because we think we haven't completed the safety level yet.
We're waiting for permission from the pyramid.
Exactly. And the science says you don't have to wait. The levels are a lie. You can access self-actualization right now in the messiness of your actual life. You don't need a perfectly secure foundation to start designing a meaningful life.
Okay, so we have established that the ladder is fake. And we have established that we have 7 lives inside of us and we have to choose one.
Right.
But how do we actually do that? Because staring at a blank page and just saying design your life is honestly terrifying.
It is, which is why Burnett and Evans don't just give you a pep talk, they give you a concrete tool.
The Odyssey plan.
Yes, the Odyssey plan.
I looked at this in the show notes. It's a mapping exercise. You basically have to map out 3 distinct 5-year timelines for your future.
And the key here is that these aren't just Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. They're very specific scenarios designed to force your brain out of its rut.
So let's break them down. Plan 1 is the easy one. That's the status quo plan.
Right. You just write down what your life looks like in 5 years if you keep doing what you were doing, and it goes well.
You get the promotion, you stay in the house, your kids graduate.
Yeah. Most people can do this one in their sleep. It's the path of least resistance.
But Plan 2 is where it gets uncomfortable. This is the pivot.
The rule for Plan 2 is, and this is strict, what would you do if your job disappeared tomorrow?
Not that you got fired, but the industry is just gone.
Exactly. AI took it, the factory closed, the market crashed. You absolutely cannot do what you are doing now. What do you do?
That is a panic-inducing question for a lot of people.
Totally.
But I can see how it forces you to find value elsewhere. It makes you realize you have other skills. The plan three is definitely my favorite.
The wild card.
The wild card. And I think this is where that 14% usually hides.
Definitely.
Huh.
The prompt for the wild card is, what would you do if money were no object? And this is the most important part. No one would laugh at you.
Why is the no one would laugh part so critical? Is it just about avoiding embarrassment?
It's about shame. Shame is the single biggest killer of innovation, especially personal innovation.
Because we judge ourselves before anyone else can.
Exactly. We all have that internal critic that says, you're 45 years old, you can't start a band, you look like an idiot.
Or, you're a serious accountant, you can't want to be a florist.
Right. We edit our dreams before we even articulate them because we are so afraid of the imaginary audience.
So by explicitly removing the social judgment in the exercise, you trick your brain into admitting what it actually wants.
Precisely. They gave a great example of this in the lecture, the one with the chiropractor.
Oh, yeah. This guy was 57, right?
Yeah, 57. He'd been a chiropractor for decades. Highly successful practice.
God of the pyramid.
Exactly. But when he did the wild card exercise, he realized he didn't want to touch another back for the rest of his life.
Wow.
He admitted he had something else inside him. He wasn't doing chiropractic work because he loved it anymore. He was doing it because he was stuck on the ladder.
And even Dave Evans, the Stanford professor who literally teaches this stuff, his wild card surprised me.
The waiter fantasy.
He wants to be a waiter.
A waiter in a high-end restaurant. And I love this because on paper, it sounds small compared to being a Stanford professor, right?
Right. It feels like a step down the ladder.
But his reasoning is fascinating. He views it as high-stakes performance art.
Performance art. Serving soup.
He talks about reading the room, saving a bad date, making his celebration special. He wants the flow of that intense social interaction without all the bureaucracy of university faculty meetings.
That makes a lot of sense. And Mel Robbins had one too, didn't she?
Yeah, her fantasy was to write a trilogy about angels.
A fantasy trilogy about angels. From a motivational speaker.
Exactly. That distinction-chasing flow instead of status seems to be the ultimate antidote to the pyramid. Maslow is all about reaching a status level.
Getting to the top.
Right. But design is about finding a flow state. Maslow says, become the CEO. Design says, do the thing that makes time stand still for you.
Find your aliveness. But here is the catch, and I think this is where the skeptical listener in me wakes up.
Let's hear it.
It's all well and good to say, I want to be a waiter, or I want to write about angels, but I have a mortgage, I have kids. I can't just quit my job to chase flow. That's reckless.
And Stanford completely agrees with you. They are not telling you to leap off a cliff.
Okay.
They are telling you to prototype.
Explain the difference. What does a life prototype actually look like compared to a life leap?
Well, a leap is quitting your job to go to culinary school because you think you want to be a chef.
Huge risk.
Huge. A prototype is catering a friend's birthday party on a Saturday to see if you actually enjoy cooking for 50 people when the pressure is on.
Oh, I see. One costs $40,000 and 2 years of your life. The other costs $200 and a Saturday afternoon.
Exactly. It's about small, low-risk experiments. They share this story of a student who was absolutely convinced his wild card was to be an underwater photographer.
Which, I mean, sounds incredibly cool.
It does. Now, the Maslow approach would be get the marine biology degree, get the advanced diving certification, buy the $10,000 camera rig, and start climbing the underwater ladder.
And the design approach.
The design approach was go find an actual underwater photographer and buy them a cup of coffee.
Just talk to them.
Talk to them. And then ask to carry their oxygen tanks for a day on a shoot.
And the student did that.
He did.
And
he hated it.
he hated it.
He absolutely hated it. It was freezing cold. The equipment was insanely heavy. It was super lonely down there. And the pay was terrible.
So the fantasy didn't match the reality.
Not at all. He realized in one single afternoon that the idea of being an underwater photographer was cool, but the reality was miserable for him.
See, that is the power of the 14% concept right there. He didn't fail at life. He just prototyped one of his 7 lives and realized, okay, not this one.
It changes the narrative completely. It takes the stakes way down. You aren't failing to find your singular purpose. You are just gathering data.
You're iterating.
Iterating. It shifts you from, I have to figure this out, to, I get to try this out.
That shift from I've got to I get to, it sounds like just semantics, but it's actually neurology, isn't it?
It really is. When you are in got to mode like, I got to pay the bills, I got to climb the ladder,
Yeah.
your brain is literally in survival mode.
It's narrow, stress.
Very narrow. It shuts down creative problem solving. But when you are in get to mode, I get to talk to this person. I get to try this new hobby. Your brain opens up to curiosity.
And because we know from the Wahba and Bridwell data that there is no ladder, we don't have to worry that stepping sideways to try a prototype is going to make us fall behind.
There is no behind. That's the liberation of all this. If the pyramid is a myth, you can't fall off it.
You are just walking through the landscape of your own
I
potential.
love that phrasing. You're just exploring.
I think that is the hardest part for people to accept, though. We love the ladder because it tells us if we are winning or losing. It's a scorecard. Without it, we are totally responsible for our own definition of success.
It puts the agency entirely back in your hands. You aren't following a map someone else drew. You are drawing one yourself.
So let's bring this in for a landing.
Huh.
We have deconstructed the map we all grew up with. We know the math says we can't be everything.
Right.
We know the science says we don't have to wait to be happy or fulfilled.
And we know that the way forward is through small experiments, not giant, terrifying leaps.
I want to leave everyone with a thought that really stuck with me while reading through these sources. We talked earlier about how you might have 7 lives inside you, but you only get to live one.
Which, again, can initially feel like a tragedy. It feels like a massive loss.
It feels like a loss if you think you are supposed to have it all.
Right.
But try flipping it. Imagine you are standing in that linear accelerator. You see the astronaut version of you, the waiter version, the CEO version. They all look amazing.
They're all great options.
But then you look at the life you are actually living, the messy, imperfect 14% reality you have right now.
Yeah.
And you look at the other lives and you say, I see all those other options and they are great. But I am choosing this one.
That changes everything.
It does, because if you explicitly choose the life you are living today, if you select it out of that incredible lineup, it doesn't make your life feel smaller.
No, it makes it infinitely more precious.
Exactly. Because it was a deliberate selection among many amazing options.
That is the ultimate definition of design, intentionality. It's not about finding the perfect life. It's about choosing the one you're in.
So go grab a napkin, sketch out those 3 Odyssey plans, see what life number 3 looks like, even if it's just for a laugh. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.